Hey folks, Jackdaw here. We've got an exclusive full cover story on Dragon Age the Veilguard featured in a brand new article from the UK-based entertainment magazine Edge, which actually happens to be headquartered in one of my favourite cities in Great Britain, the beautiful Jane Austen-esque Georgian Bath. I definitely recommend a lovely little trip to the southwest in Somerset. Also, it's nice to have some exclusive content for a chance as a Brit, eh? And so this cover story is packed with details about the game's mission-based approach, the evolving role of companions and their sense of agency in the world, the reasoning behind the new combat style, and even mentions of previous iterations of Dragon Age 4 that we know about all too well, eventually leading to the Veilguard's bold new direction with its single player pivot. And so there's plenty of juicy, while mostly spoiler-free info to dive straight into. So let's draw back the veil and look behind the curtain with thanks to Edge writer Jeremy Peel. And so this cover story all starts with Jeremy reflecting on past experiences that came to mind while working on this cover story for the Veilguard. In an interview, creative director John Epler shared that during early development, the studio explored various concepts before ultimately deciding that the Veilguard would be a single-player, story-focused RPG. However, as expected from BioWare, this was just the foundation. The Dragon Age universe wasn't created by chance or myth, but out of necessity. BioWare, frustrated with licensing restrictions during the development of Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights, decided to create their own Dungeons and Dragons-like setting. The team was tasked with crafting a new fantasy world that would allow them to continue innovating in Western RPGs without external limitations, except for a few guidelines, namely a Eurocentric fantasy theme with the inclusion of a fireball spell as requested by BioWare co-founder Ray Muzica. Dragon Age's world, of course Thedas, known as the Dragon Age setting, literally, has evolved over the past 2 decades, and don't we know it, becoming known for its distinct flavour rooted in character-driven storytelling. John Epler explains that while standard fantasy elements exist in Dragon Age, every focus in the world is tied to a character, making the story more relatable and engaging. This character-centric approach is evident in the Veilguard, the upcoming sequel which was initially titled Dread Wolf. The game's antagonist, Solas, is an ancient elf responsible for creating the Veil, a barrier separating the physical world from the spirit world. His actions have had far-reaching consequences, shaping many of the series' key features, like the tension between the mages and the church. Epler emphasises that Dragon Age's world is compelling because it's shaped by characters who believed they were doing the right thing. Solas, one of BioWare's most intricately developed characters, was a seemingly unremarkable companion in Inquisition, only revealing his true threat by the end of the Trespasser DLC. As the Dread Wolf, Solas aims to undo the damage he caused by tearing down the Veil, which would destroy Thedas. The next Dragon Age was always intended to centre on his story, and John Epler confirms this, noting that the game's focus was set up at the end of Trespasser. However, the path to creating the Veilguard was not straightforward, and don't we know it? In 2019, reports surfaced that an earlier version of the game featuring a group of spies conducting heists in the Twinter Imperium was cancelled. The team was then redirected to work on the struggling Anthem project, and a small team started over with Dragon Age, initially experimenting with live service elements. Of course, as we know today, Project Joplin versus Project Morrison. Yet despite trying different approaches, BioWare ultimately, and thankfully, returned to its roots with a single-player, story-focused RPG. And here's where we get a bit more context, because John Epler likens the process to carving an elephant from marble, where they finally realised that they should focus solely on making a character and story-driven game. Unlike the open-world structure of Inquisition, which was criticised for its slow pacing, the Veilguard is mission-based, with tighter environments designed to keep the story and characters at the forefront, providing a more curated experience for players. And of course, while John Epler is absolutely proud of Inquisition, as he flipping should be, because it's still a fantastic game despite its flaws, but it's still great to hear that BioWare are very much aware of its flaws. And in regards to Inquisition, John Epler actually transitioned from cinematic designer to a lead role. He did actually acknowledge one major flaw: the absentee antagonist protagonist Corypheus, the main villain who lacked so much presence, with players often spending hours on side content that diminished the sense of urgency. With the Veilguard, the team aims to maintain a consistent sense of impending doom, ensuring players feel the pressure to act before the world does end. Having said that, there is still room for exploration and side quests. The story always drives the action forward, making the stakes feel immediate, present, and more realistic. And in the Veilguard, the action kicks off literally straight away after character creation. As you create Rook, you immediately face a critical choice, whether to threaten or negotiate with a bar owner for information. And this decision leads you to a key contact, Nev Gallus, a private investigator who can help you track down Solas. And straight away the game takes you into Minrathous, the largest city in Thedas and the capital of the Tevinter Imperium. Previously only hinted at in the series, Minrathous is a city of extremes, built by slaves and powerful mages, featuring tiered palaces and floating spires. Corin Bush, the game director, explains that the city's design was inspired by a comment made by Dorian in Dragon Age Inquisition, where he referred to other major cities as quaint compared to Minrathous. And this set the tone for creating a sprawling, diverse and expansive city that's both grimy and luxurious. And the Veilguard really showcases BioWare's refined focus, especially visible in the detailed environments of Minrathous. Unlike the more spread out resources in Inquisition, Veilguard offers carefully crafted, visually striking scenes around every corner. Art director Matthew Rhodes highlights how the team strategically placed grand structures like temples and mage towers to create impactful visual moments. BioWare aimed to bring to life the long-imagined city of Minrathous, aware that fans have their own vision of this place. The city is steeped in magical energy, with glowing sigils on dark buildings reminiscent of the vibrant lights of Osaka's riverfront or the futuristic Los Angeles of Blade Runner. Each environment was designed to encourage the player's attention into these intricate details. And for those who look extremely close, BioWare incorporated ray-traced reflections to enhance the overall ambience, such as neon signs reflecting in puddles and storm drains visible through metal grates, always reminding players of the city's layered structure, with more happening both above and below them at any given moment. One of BioWare's key goals in the Veilguard is to create a world worth saving, a place players can envision living in after the main quest ends. And to achieve this, the team has grounded its fantastical environments with elements of everyday life. Matthew Rhodes explains that despite the grandeur of Minrathous, it's also a place where people go about their daily routines, like buying bread or raising children. However, normal life in Minrathous is very quickly shattered. Shortly after your arrival, a magical ritual begins, tearing open the sky and unleashing flaming demons onto city streets. This event, part of Solas's plan to create a new reality, sets the tone for the game's intense prologue. And Corin Bush describes the prologue as feeling like the finale of a typical game, thrusting players immediately into high-stakes action and story. And during this chaotic scene, you face down a pride demon, a familiar foe in the series, but now with a different visual twist. The demon's design now incorporates bright glowing lines that burst from its ribcage, reflecting its nature as a creature of raw negative emotion. And this visual element is meant to embody the demon's inner turmoil, like an entire nervous system spread across the demon's design. Now in the Veilguard, the biggest change from previous Dragon Age games is immediately evident during combat. When Rook encounters a group of demons blocking their path, they seamlessly switch between targets, evade attacks with precision, and alternate between blades and a bow. The combat system is fluid, allowing for a mix of light and heavy attacks, with the option to charge up powerful strikes when opportunities arise. Corin Bush highlights that responsiveness was the primary goal for the combat system. Players can cancel animations mid-action, such as aborting a sword swing to dodge an incoming attack, ensuring that they feel fully in control of every move. The game is designed to make players feel grounded and fully present in the handcrafted environments. However, for those who do find the combat too challenging, the Veilguard does offer high customizable difficulty settings. Another significant shift from earlier games is the removal of the overhead tactical camera, which was a key feature for fans who appreciated the series' roots in tabletop-inspired strategic combat. Definitely one of the pillars of DAO. John Epler explains that the tactical camera had previously influenced influenced where battle could occur, with Inquisition specifically avoiding indoor fights due to the camera's limitations. And another major change is the removal of direct control over our companions, something that still doesn't sit right with me, but we do have reasoning for it right now. And so instead of steering their actions, players now just focus entirely on controlling their rook. And Corin Bush emphasises that this decision was made to enhance immersion, allowing companions to now act more independently as fully realised characters. And so while this may initially feel like a loss, Bush notes that testing has shown players are more engaged when they aren't juggling around multiple characters. And so you know what? That is a fair shake-up. Another reason for this increased engagement is the game's faster, more dynamic combat, which demands higher actions per minute from players. Attempting to manage both Rook and the companions simultaneously detracted from the experience, so the decision was to keep the focus on just Rook's actions, ensuring the gameplay remains fluid and responsive. While the tactical camera has been removed, the Veilguard does have its own tactical element, maintaining the importance of the pause button in this fast-paced combat. Corin Bush highlights that this pause feature now allows players to assess targets and consider elemental strengths and weaknesses, which is of course crucial for success. Essentially, it's like Mass Effect now. Regarding the classes, of course you have your Rogue, Warrior and Mage class, and each have unique resources for combat. Rogues build momentum through aggression and evasion, while warriors gain rewards for blocking and parrying. And these resources fuel an ability wheel that pauses the game, enabling strategic decision making. Rook will have access to 3 primary abilities, runes and a special ability, totaling 5 distinct combat options. Just like Mass Effect, the ability wheel also includes sections for companions, like Harding, a returning rogue. Each companion has individual behaviours, such as target prioritization and positioning in combat, and players can direct their companions by activating their abilities from the wheel and instructing them to focus on specific targets. This system allows for the activation of various buffs and damage enhancements from companions' gear. Of course, as you progress through the game, you're going to be constantly filling out this ability wheel with different tactical options. Additionally, in the combat department, Veilguard enhances combat with a focus on combos, again similar to Mass Effect. For example, players can command one companion to use a gravity well effect to gather enemies, followed by another companion using a time slowing ability, and then unleash an area of effect attack for maximum damage. And the interface actually alerts players for these opportunities of combo detonations. Corin Bush likens this tactical element to a huddle, where players strategize based on the encounter and how their companions can work together effectively. And John Epler emphasizes that players will need to make focused tactical decisions as the game progresses. And Bush reassures fans that the shift to fast-paced action does not simplify the gameplay. Instead, it maintains the expected pause and play tactical elements, ensuring depth in both combat and progression systems, which is a brilliant blend of the two. Now, getting into the characters, companions have a greater sense of autonomy beyond combat. BioWare noticed that players often favoured a small group of characters in previous games, and so this time, players would be required to mix their squad up regularly. And I mean, even to me this sounds different, because like I'm so used to at least choosing 3 companions and just having them throughout the entire game, but Corin Bush emphasises that while players may have favourite companions, some will be mandatory for certain missions, reinforcing the idea that these companions have their own lives outside of Rook, and companions will develop relationships and share past experiences, making them feel a lot more 3-dimensional, instead of simply collecting characters at a camp. Players can encounter companions unexpectedly during exploration. For example, while in Docktown, you might find Nev investigating an abduction case, allowing you to join in her storyline, which is so freaking cool. Additionally, companion arcs are intricately connected to the main plot, but also feature unique challenges and their own villains, presented through intimate moments. These arcs may include both combat and non-combat elements, and are both as elaborate as main quests. Although these events are optional, if players chose not to engage, the arcs will actually resolve on their own, which is also just as cool, potentially leading to significant consequences if you don't engage or if that character were to figure it out themselves. And Bush also does warn against labelling them as mere side content due to their narrative weight. So to me it's kind of like loyalty missions but with more consequences, and they actually will get unearthed if you don't bother with them. Now the Veilguard aims to bring significant changes while building on the rich history and beloved beloved characters of the series. This unique approach is a hallmark of Dragon Age, which has never had a direct sequel or a recurring protagonist, instead reinventing itself with each new installment. John Epler acknowledges the mixed blessing of this format, noting that it does allow them for greater experimentation and innovation. While core elements remain, such as being an RPG focused on character development and strategic combat, the distinct feel of each game is what defines the series. Epler emphasizes that although there are familiar components, each entry offers a fresh experience, ensuring that Dragon Age continues to engage and surprise its audience. In closing, as a whole, BioWare emphasize a collaborative storytelling approach that enhances visual storytelling. Rather than relying heavily on exposition, the team is using more environmental storytelling elements, like broken statues or overgrown skeletons to convey the narrative aspect. This creative synergy among departments encourages innovative solutions across writing, art, and audio, avoiding the pitfalls of siloed design. Additionally, Veilguard, had to shift away from its direct companion control during combat, and it is a mention of a focus on their storytelling strengths learned from past projects like Anthem. And just reading off a few of the direct quotations from this article, your companions are a mix of old and new. Harding is a familiar face, Veilljumper Balara is new with a new occupation, while Davran is a new face with a familiar profession, he's a warden. The Arlafan Forest is home to the ruined city of the elves, now a place of wild magic, Veiljumpers and allegedly spirits. And Balara is driven by a desire to learn more about the elves, rediscovering the shattered history and magic of her people, which gives us a little bit more of an indicator on her backstory. And BioWare aims to create a more inclusive character creation system, allowing for better representation of skin tones and body types, ensuring players can fully customize their protagonists, even further than before. And lastly, players will be exploring new regions across Tevinter and beyond. Ravane is a certainty, and that's only accessible via Antiva travelling overland. And that is basically a lot of this article TLDR'd and summarised as much as I can while retaining plenty of the core detail of this 12-page spreader. Honestly, I really appreciate Edge's work here. There's a really good balance of pure content and less spoilery stuff. Of course, I loved the story spoilers in Game Informer, but that has definitely had a mixed reception in the fandom of, ooh, was that almost too much? Whereas this is actually a really good all-rounder, where we're getting a lot of details about more integrated systems, and I really like hearing about the making of the Veilguard, that change of direction and Edge actually really stepping into that, and then getting justifications for things like why we can't control our companions and the previous iterations and how actually they feel now because of that single player pivot and fighting for it. The Veilguard's been able to realise its true vision as a character-driven story RPG. And then just even things about hearing about, companions' agency in the world, the fact that their own companion arcs will finish if you don't even care or don't even get invested in that, and that in effect will have consequences too. I love that stuff. So no, really, really good article. Massively appreciated Edge for pulling this one off. Do let me know all of your thoughts down below. What were the hot details that you liked hearing the most? What gets you most excited? As I currently record this, there has still been no roadmap or indicator of when the roadmap is coming out. Hopefully that has changed by the time this video is out, but no, we remain vigilant and adamant, waiting for this roadmap so we can get this actual release date of the Veilguard. But of course, until that moment, until we get all that stuff, you are in the right place for the latest on the next Dragon Age game. Of course, I have been Jackdaw, and I will see you in the next one. But I should go, whoa, 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 whoa.